The biggest World Cup in history. 48 nations, $13 billion, and a promise to unite the world through football. But behind the spectacle, a darker story was unfolding. A FIFA-appointed referee denied entry at the U.S. border despite valid papers. Visa waivers pulled for fans from 5 African nations. Ticket prices past $10,000. The dark side of this World Cup wasn't hidden. It started at the border. Long before the first whistle, a new kind of border was being built around the 2026 World Cup. The United States, as principal host, created a security system unlike anything in the tournament's history. At its heart stands the White House World Cup 2026 Task Force, a command center charged with keeping danger at bay. Andrew Giuliani, a name already familiar in American politics, became the public face of this operation, briefing the media, coordinating with federal agencies, and promising that every visitor would be screened for risk. The playbook is thick with procedures. The Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Protection, the FBI, and the Secret Service all operate under a single, unified framework. Every person crossing into the country for the World Cup faces a web of checks. For travelers from dozens of flagged countries, the phrase additional inspection now defines the border experience. This is the official language used by CBP when officers need to verify admissibility. It can mean a few extra questions, or it can mean hours of interviews, biometric scans, and the sudden loss of a long-awaited dream. Officials insist these measures are routine, necessary to protect millions of fans and players. But the reality is a system built for exclusion as much as inclusion. Intelligence databases, watch lists, and risk algorithms determine who gets in and who is turned away. The result is a tournament where access itself becomes the first contest, and where the rules can change without warning. Before any story of heartbreak or triumph on the pitch, there is a gate, and the power to close it rests with the security apparatus, not the sport. Travelers from the travel ban list of 39 countries faced a new reality at the border. Even with valid visas, they were pulled aside for heightened scrutiny, their entry determined by algorithms and biometric scans. Customs officers ran fingerprints and facial images through real-time databases, searching for any risk flagged by intelligence agencies. This system did not distinguish between fans, journalists, or officials. All were subject to the same regime. The promise of a global celebration clashed with the reality of unpredictable barriers. Fans holding match tickets from Senegal, Ivory Coast, Algeria, Tunisia, and Cape Verde suddenly found that the visa bond waiver, once their only path past a $15,000 deposit, had been suspended. For them, the cost of entry became insurmountable overnight. Official statements cited overstay rates and security, but for those left stranded, the justification was irrelevant. In airports from Miami to Dallas, stories spread of supporters and credentialed reporters held for hours, some sent back without explanation. The climate of friction extended beyond isolated incidents, becoming a defining feature of the World Cup's opening weeks. Before a single ball was kicked, the contest for access had already claimed its first casualties. Omar Abdulkadir Artan's name appeared on FIFA's final list of match officials in April 2026, a single line in a PDF, but a milestone for Somali football. For the first time, a referee from Somalia would step onto the world's biggest stage. Artan, born in Mogadishu and named CAF's Referee of the Year just months earlier, carried the hopes of a nation that had never seen its own at the center of a World Cup match. His credentials were impeccable: a FIFA badge since 2018, a B1 business visa issued by the U.S. State Department, and a sealed dossier of documents, passport, accreditation, airline ticket, checked and logged by both the Somali Football Federation and FIFA's own portal. On June 6th, Artan boarded a flight in Istanbul, bound for Miami. The journey was supposed to end with a seminar and a first match assignment. Instead, it became a test of the new border regime. At Miami International Airport, Artan presented his passport, visa, and the official FIFA badge. Within minutes, a Customs and Border Protection officer directed him to secondary inspection, a process that for most travelers means a few questions and a short wait. For Artan, it stretched into an 11-hour ordeal. His fingerprints and photo were run through federal databases. Each document was checked, logged, and held in a secure vault. The chain of custody was by the book, every handoff time-stamped, every item accounted for. As the hours passed, the routine faded. Artan waited, cut off from the outside, his phone silent. At 5:45 p.m., CBP delivered its decision, declaring him inadmissible due to vetting concerns. There was no code, no explanation. The official notice cited national security, a phrase that offers no appeal. His FIFA badge was taken. The next outbound flight would carry him back to Istanbul, his World Cup over before it began. Artan spoke to reporters from his hotel room, his voice steady but raw. He said he had the right visa and the right papers. "I did everything by the rules," he added. In that moment, the story of access and exclusion found a human face. A career defined by discipline and precision, undone by a process that offered neither transparency nor recourse. For Somali football, the dream of recognition was suspended in a single airport corridor, proof that at this World Cup, the real contest sometimes takes place far from the pitch. News of Omar Abdulkadir Artan's exclusion broke with a single sentence from FIFA. He would not be allowed to train or officiate at the World Cup. The announcement was clinical, stripped of protest or apology. In a second statement, FIFA distanced itself from the controversy, repeating that it holds no authority over the immigration decisions of its host countries. The message was clear. Football's governing body would not intervene, even for a referee carrying its own badge. The Somali Football Association refused to let the matter rest. In a formal letter, the federation demanded an explanation and described the incident as politically discriminatory. They argued that Artan's removal was not just a bureaucratic setback, but a blow to the spirit of fair play and inclusion that FIFA claims to defend. Human rights organizations joined the outcry, warning that the denial raised deeper questions about the freedom of movement for fans, journalists, and officials. Amnesty International and the ACLU issued advisories, calling for guarantees that sport would not be used as a pretext for exclusion. The debate now stretched far beyond one referee. It became a collision between the promise of sporting neutrality and the hard edge of state power. In the shadows of stadiums and behind the language of security, the question lingered. Can football truly remain above politics when the gates are controlled by forces outside the game? FIFA's financial ambitions for 2026 dwarf anything seen before. The organization projects $13 billion in total revenue for this World Cup cycle, nearly double the haul from Russia or Qatar. Of that, $9 billion is expected to flow in during the tournament year alone. Broadcast rights alone are set to bring in $4.2 billion, while global sponsors like Coca-Cola, Adidas, and Visa will add another $2.8 billion to the pot. Ticketing and hospitality, driven by dynamic pricing and a ballooning premium market, are forecast at $1.5 billion. But the numbers come with a cost. The top public ticket for the final is listed at $10,990, a figure that has become a symbol of the event's new era. For many, it is an impossible sum, far removed from the days when a World Cup ticket was a once-in-a-lifetime dream within reach. Supporter groups across Europe and Africa have branded the pricing a monumental betrayal. Hashtags calling for a boycott trended as tens of thousands of tickets were canceled in protest. The backlash is not just about money, it is about who the tournament is built for. In the shadow of these profits, ordinary fans are pushed aside, their voices drowned out by the roar of the corporate engine. The World Cup, once a festival for all, now feels like a gated gala, where access is measured in dollars, not passion. On January 10, 2017, FIFA's council gathered in Zurich and delivered a unanimous verdict. The World Cup would expand to 48 teams starting in 2026. The decision added 16 new group stage matches, raising the total from 64 to 80 games. FIFA's president, Gianni Infantino, presented the move as a promise. More nations would taste football's grandest stage, and the world would be watching. Behind the optimism stood numbers that spoke louder than words. Projections showed an extra $1 billion in revenue and $640 million in profit, driven by new broadcast deals and sponsorships. Yet the expansion came with a price. The tournament's calendar grew tighter, compressing rest days and forcing teams to travel farther between games. Critics warned of uneven contests and player fatigue, questioning whether the quality of football would hold under the weight of so many fixtures. For some, the World Cup's new scale felt less like a celebration and more like a business plan, one that would test the limits of the sport, its fans, and the fragile promise of a truly global stage. Tonight, a referee with the right papers remains stranded outside the stadium. Borders tighten, profits soar, and the question lingers. When did football become just another stage for power plays? As the world watches, the game risks losing its soul, one denied entry at a time.